do people care about the region? Where do they get their information?
I think that they care a lot because it's the conflicts there, the wars that are never ending. They are very broadly, of course, published everywhere in TV, in newspapers, and so on. Some say we are covering that too much, but that depends on what you compare with and so on. But of course the people are very engaged, but they are growing more and more pessimistic if you talk about the Palestinian-Israeli story. But it's so hopeless. All these years there have been talk about peace process, and nowadays nobody wants to talk anymore about peace process because nothing happens. And but I think there is, of course, a perception that it's a dangerous place and that it's hopeless. And but on the other hand, we have a lot of influx of people from the region, especially from Iraq and Iran and Turkey. So we have many people in our country has first-hand knowledge about the situation there, and that influences also the perception.
Mm-hmm. So do you think their perception of the trouble in the region is contribute to political problem or contribute to religious problem?
Both, but I think more and more Swedes actually, they have gone from being traditionally rather pro-Israeli, they have gone to more pro-Palestinian. They think that it's a very unfair treatment of the Palestinians. Why can't they have their own homeland? I mean, everybody, even George Bush, agreed that it should be two states. But why is nobody doing anything, and why is it not happening? On the other hand, everybody knows also that there are big problems on the other side, that the Palestinians, they cannot agree, and I think there is a great empathy for the suffering, for instance, in Gaza and during this terrible war that was now in January. But on the other hand, there is no sympathy at all for Hamas, for instance, because people think that nobody wants to have that kinds of society, like the Taliban-like system.
You said that Sweden, you have received a lot of Muslim immigrants. So now the Swedish society has a chance to mingle with the immigrants. What do you think their the general impression of Islam and the Muslim culture?
Well, I think the majority of the population, especially those that are interacting with the immigrants, they are rather, I think they look very calmly upon that. Most of them, by the way, that comes from this area are Muslims in a way, but they are not active or they are not fundamentalists or very. But then they are, of course, on. There is a small but very loud right-wing nationalist group in Sweden, and they talk a lot about how dangerous they are, how they are infiltrating our society, that soon, even racist words, like they say, that soon there will be no blue-eyed children in our country and so on. But they are, if you compare with Denmark and Norway, for instance, where they have two very large, each country have their very large xenophobic parties, actually in the parliament too. They have like more than 20% support. In Sweden it's still outside the system, but now, next year, in September, there will be a new parliament election in Sweden. Then we'll see, because there's one party that has some chance to enter. They can get over this 4% threshold, and then we'll see. Then they will maybe be a more important factor, but so far they haven't been able to get any breakthrough in the opinion.
I see. So how do you think the Swedish public are informed about what's going on in the Middle East and the Muslim world? where do they get their news?
Oh, yeah, but it's the same as all their news they get from mostly the newspapers, television, and the public radio, which is, by the way, a very big thing in Sweden. Public radio, everybody listens to that, and if you want to learn more, of course, then you check the internet, the international press. Swedes read English, so there's no problem. And there are also the international TV channels like BBC and also Al Jazeera in the English Al Jazeera.
So Al Jazeera English is available on your cable TV?
Yes, I think most of people can. It's no big problem to get it.
I see. How do you think how informed do you think Americans are about what's going on in the Middle East and Muslim world?
It's hard to tell. I've been watching. I've only been here for a couple of weeks. I've been watching, reading newspapers, but also, of course, watching TV. Mm. Actually, you don't see much foreign news reporting at all in the networks and in the mainstream channels. It's very, very, very little. I'm a little bit surprised because, of course, when I'm in Europe and watch CNN, it's another way. They have the CNN International, and it's another.
It's a different channel.
Much different, and they have much more. Here it's mostly entertainment, everything. So I don't know where you can get the information. And of course, Islam is used here as an internal political weapon against the president, for instance, here, and in other ways too. So I'm not so impressed by what I've seen so far, but we'll see. I have to watch that much closer.
So what does Swedish public think of the handling of Middle East by American government and American foreign policy?
I think that well, there are different opinions, of course, but I think there is awareness of that. The U.S. is always, no matter what happens, they are always backing up Israel in the end. I mean, they can have some marginal things like that you should not build those settlements and so on, but basically there's no critique. Basically they don't take them by the hands and say no, or in some other place and say you have to do this. But I mean, everybody knows that there are several explanations to that. But I think that's the perception in Sweden, that it's not fair.
How about the Afghanistan war, the handling by American government?
Well, I think that if they think about the Afghan war, I think most people are aware of that. That is something that the administration have inherited from the previous, and that what happened in September 2001 was, of course, the reason why it was an intervention, and they'd have to go after the Al-Qaeda. I think everybody more or less understands that, but of course it's a growing concern about how to handle the problem. I mean, but it's basically the same questions that President Obama is asking himself and his military now, how to get from here.